Nick Theriot says broad targeting is the game changer we all should use, but is he right? In this video I will explain broad targeting versus interest targeting and explain all the key elements of it so you don't waste your money and lose thousands in profit. Let's look at Nick's approach to targeting, but first, my name is William and I generated more than $10 million in revenue with meta ad systems for more than 15 e-commerce brands. With that said, let's get straight into the video. So what's Nick preaching is basically just to use broad targeting and don't use any other targeting settings at all. No retargeting audiences, no lookalike audiences and so on. To understand why he says that, we first need to understand what is broad targeting and how it actually works. If you keep your audience broad, you basically tell Facebook that it's free to target anyone within the country, within the geo that you selected. Now that's of course much broader than some interests that you could use or some lookalike audiences. But the common misconception is that then people assume that your ads are just shown to everyone in the country, which is not the case. In fact, every single ad creates its own audience. The Facebook algorithm utilizes machine learning to find the best converting audience for every specific ad. So technically the targeting is not even happening on the ad set level where you set the targeting settings, but on the ad level. And this is why Nick says don't put any targeting settings, but just make sure that the creative targets like an organic post. So with the visuals, with the text hook, that the Facebook algorithm finds the best possible audience which will most efficiently convert with that ad. Now when you launch that ad with broad targeting, it gets shown to the first like 100 random people from the country. And then based on who engages the most, who clicks, who buys, Facebook optimizes towards your most efficient audience. This is an ongoing process and it's not just happening in the learning phase, what many people believe, but actually throughout the whole time. Now if you set interests, what happens is that from the big broad pool you just limit it much further to certain interest groups, and Facebook starts the optimization within that interest group. Still, you have to understand that when you make ads and select interest groups, not every single person in the interest group will get to see your ad. In fact, just a really small segment of it. That segment which is most likely to convert, but that's only after it optimizes. So the difference between broad and interest targeting is not that broad just shoots ads to everyone and interest to some specific people, but actually they both optimize towards your most efficient audience. However, the main difference is that with broad, the pool where the optimization starts, it's much larger, whereas with interest targeting, the pool is much smaller and limited. Now, what does that mean for your ads? You have to understand that when you pick 10 or 20 interests that you include in your ad set, those are people that are likely to like your product and to buy it, but it's not your ideal audience. Your ideal audience is a segment of the whole audience which also intersects with the interest audience. You probably already see where I'm leading this to. When you just launch ads and start out, the interest groups perform usually better because it's way more likely just through luck, even without much optimization, to go for those people, for that intersection between your ideal audience and the interest audience that you've chosen. Whereas when you start out broad and just pick random people from the broad audience before it optimizes, it's way more likely that you don't hit your ideal audience that converts the best. But now when it optimized, you can see that from the broad audience that's optimized, like the algorithm will perfectly like reduce the targeting on your ideal audience and only that. Whereas if you have interest targeting and then it optimizes, it will only focus on the intersection between your ideal audience and the interest audience. That audience is much smaller and that means it's less scalable and it's more unstable. So what does that mean for your ads? When you have a highly optimized campaign and a lot of data, then broad will always outperform your interest targeting because that can focus on your whole ideal audience and not just a segment of it. However, when you're just starting out or when you're launching a new campaign without much data, it's very likely that interest targeting, like 10 to 20 interests that are related to your product, if you just include all of them, that this segment will perform better than the overall broad audience, but only until the broad audience has enough data to outperform the interest campaign. Once it outperforms, it's very likely that it will keep outperforming it forever and that you can just discard the interest campaign. Now let's hop into a live ad account and I will show you how that works. So here's a perfect example. This brand wasn't running any broad campaigns, but was running interest campaigns. So when we launched the broad campaign, it wasn't optimized yet. So what we did is we have the broad campaign running, but at the same time we have an interest campaign running, so that in the short term we can get more sales and more profitable sales through the interest campaign, so that in the background the broad campaign still optimizes and is ready to overtake at some point in time. Now you can see right now the interest campaign is still spending more, and here if we check the ROAS, you can already see, okay, the broad is spending less, but it already performs better. So in this account right now, the broad campaign is actually optimizing further and further, and it will soon overtake the interest campaign. And once it's outperforming by a lot, we will just switch off the interest campaign. But until then, we'll keep this running so that it produces more sales, more growth, and acquires more customers, of course. So to sum it up, broad is the best option long term, but it doesn't mean that only broad from the beginning is the best option for you. If your broad campaign doesn't have much data yet, make sure to test also including 10 to 20 relevant interests and see how such a campaign performs. Of course, you have to make sure that the broad and the interest campaign are completely the same and identical, otherwise it's not a fair split test. And once your account and your campaigns have enough data, you can just switch off the interest campaign and go full in on the broad campaign. And that is the whole truth about Nick's favorite, broad targeting. But you need to know that there's more to Facebook ads than just targeting. Once you have set up your campaigns perfectly and run a scientific split testing system, it's all about the creative, it's all about the copywriting, it's all about how you can make different ads, different winners that scale your ad budget profitably while keeping your cost per acquisition low. And that's exactly what we do for 7 and 8 figure brands, to scale them while retaining a low NCCPA. So if you want me and my team to help you with that, check out the link below and book a free call with me today. And if for any reason you're not ready yet, check out this video as I'm breaking out the exact Facebook ad strategy that has generated more than 10 million in revenue for my clients. See you on the other side.